going to be a full-time musician, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. But I sort of made the commitment to be the best musician I could, regardless of how many or few gigs that I played. And so I could talk a little bit more about how playing gigs relates to the psychology of being a musician, but we won't get into that heavy stuff right away. So anyways, I'm I guess you could call a local recording musician, primarily on bass and trumpet. And I'm also one of those guys that has a day job. So that that's kind of who I am in a nutshell. Very happy to be here. So thanks, Brett, for giving me the invite and opening the conversation.
Luca, did you have something to add there?
No.
Oh, it was something else. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to play you a short excerpt of what I think is probably the most difficult bass line that Dave's had to learn and perform in recent memory. And I think this. Pardon?
It would be up there for sure. So that's what happens when you have a drummer composing music on like a keyboard and asking humans to play it after it's already been recorded in the studio.
Yeah, so this was a programmed bass line, like a synthesized thing by a computer, and then the leader of the band said, "No, I want to play it on the bass," and it doesn't make any sense, and this is really cool. And this was live too; it wasn't studio performed. So I won't play the whole thing because it's long as hell, but I'll just give you an example of what this guy's capable of.
Okie dokie or jokey.
It's smart while streaming to turn off video for the benefit great glorious nation Kazakhstan, as they say.
Okay.
Roger that.
Here it comes. So this is a tune called Attack of the Changeling Babies. This was live at the Jazz Festival, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago, next month. Uh-oh, hold on. My GarageBand is still open. Stand by. Okay, here we go. Probably one of the more experimental things that we've been involved in. But man, there's some crazy difficult work there, and you've got going through the pedals and the effects and stuff.
Well, I heard this album for the first time at your house, Brett, when I came back from Vancouver, I think. And I thought you were playing like some John Schofield something or Kurt Rosenwinkel and it turned out to be like our friend and compatriot here who composed all this, had it recorded by a few different session musicians all over the country, really. And yeah, so I thought, oh man, we have got to not let this just float away into the ether. We have to perform this music. So, we sort of nudged him a little bit and put this group together. Yeah, super fun to play. And, it just, for me, it reiterates, it reiterates something that I realized a while ago, certainly coming back from Toronto and that whole experience, is there are great players in and amongst. You just have to find the right, you have to find like like birds of a feather flock together. You find your flock, and it doesn't matter where you are, you're going to be successful and you're going to have fun playing music. And so sometimes that's harder in a community like Saskatoon, but still totally achievable. So yeah, when I heard this, I knew, okay, he's already gone through the hard part of, composing this music and recording it.
Yeah.
Let's just correct it a little bit, if you will. And so we did, and yeah, we didn't play it perfectly, but man, it was a lot of fun.
It's still kind of mind blowing to me that like something of this like experimental, like avant-garde quality is kind of sitting in the shadows. Like Luca, you remember the Basement Jazz Club, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about that yesterday, and then like talking about all the venues in Vancouver and all the venues in here, and how there's like a whole bunch of performance venues. Yeah. Anyway.
I hate to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I leave the Zoom call. My phone might die.
Oh, that's understandable.
No problem. We'll get as far as we can get.
Okay, because it said it was at 20%.
Okay, well, I'll stop waxing poetic about this particular cool thing here, and we'll get into some of the questions that we farmed from yesterday, or sourced, I should say, not farmed.
Is it busy out at the beach, Luca?
No, I'm currently sitting farther away from my sister and my friend who brought me here, and I'm making a stand hill
Nice.
because my ADHD was like, make something to distract your hands.
Yeah, there's
So
a
stand hill it was.
Well, so in my other life, I work with the co-op system, and I'm a buyer for all sorts of like little gadgets and stuff like that. So fidget spinners, I know quite a bit about them actually. And you're not alone. I'll just say that there's a lot of people who like to keep their hands busy. We sell tons of stuff like that.
My ADHD needs something like that. Kat, what are you doing? Kat, why are you coming over here? Kat, I'm in the middle of a call.
Okay, so the first question that we sourced from yesterday as a group was, in general, it's in the chat here. In general, how does one exactly become a professional in the music industry?
What?
There are lots of people that are really good at playing instruments, but how about the probability of a person making it their full-time job?
Man, that is a good question. That's a really insightful question for your class to have kind of distilled down on. Lots goes into that. But you know what I would say? I would say, crossing that sort of chasm from being a hobbyist to a professional, it rides on so much more than technical ability. So don't get me wrong. You're expected to be technically proficient at your instrument, but those are table stakes for being a professional musician. So let's just assume that once you enter into the realm of professional musicianship, everybody is going to be relatively kick-ass at their instrument. So the things that are going to make you stand out over and above that are things that you might think are kind of mundane now and boring, like how about showing up on time, being generally agreeable and easy to work with. But those are the types of things that the people who get all the gigs, they've got they've got everybody in town to choose from, and everybody's good at their instrument, but they want to work with the people that are dependable and that are reliable, because the best guitar player you have in your band is the one that not only plays the parts, but that shows up on time, shows up to the rehearsal, hopefully, more or less sober. Star in the margin on that one, but yeah. So really, really fantastic question from your class. I would say those are a couple of the things, just to get that conversation going. And Brent, I'm sure you have a whole perspective on this question too.
Yeah, I think my perspective is fairly limited, because the students kind of already know what I do. I mean, like I have a teaching job, and that's the majority of my income. And then, my free time is spent trying to capitalize on my skill set. So I'd say it's like a 75-25 split on what I'm doing. It's all music or music related. Hello there. Would you like to let your sister know that they are being recorded for this meeting for archival purposes?
Oh yeah, sure. I probably should have told you that.
Obligated to ask. Nobody will be identified and it'll be unlisted. But
Admiring the background.
No, it's avocado toast in the background. So my perspective is more or less the same as Dave's here. I think what's an interesting thing to talking about is that like we're both in a couple of bands, but like it's not like we're in a band like Paul McCartney was in a band, and that's the only thing that you do. Like we're kind of like musical mercenaries. Whoever's the top bidder and has the most honorable cause, gets our services for the right price. So we're not married to a singular band or brand. It's a matter of being kind of a laborer, which means that when you're being hired for something, that you got to put your enjoyment of the product that's being created as very secondary to the process in which it's created. So that said, the showing up on time, being sober, being reliable and respectful, and kind of personable in the workplace becomes an equal asset to your technical and artistic ability.
Yeah, well, and not to mention there are a whole raft of other skills that will serve you well. Like Brett, what you said about being sort of a hired gun, a mercenary, if you will.
Yeah.
That's what you and I do, and that doesn't necessarily mean that is what Luca's going to do. Maybe Luca will be front person for a band, and that's what you want to do. But for us, we need to be highly flexible to different styles of music, and so that means you have to open up your ears to music that you might not normally listen to yourself at home, but you have to be open to learning it and really learning the nuances and the granularity of these styles so that you're hireable if that's what you want to do. So for me personally, I love playing with bands live, but my thing is like I love to get in the studio and record. And so for me, I'm a total junkie about like tone and every little pedal or cable or whatever it is that helps me to get the tone in the studio. That's what I like to do. So that is a whole aside from practicing the parts, is researching the gear, and trying a bunch of things out and getting my signal chain where it needs to go. So that's a consideration. There's also the business side of it. How well you're able to manage your finances. So man, that's just a jumping off point though. There's so much that goes into, and so the probability of a person making it as his or her full-time job, see, that's where I'm going to challenge that question a little bit. And this is from my perspective, because I'm the guy that has, two jobs really. But it just seems like there's this duality of the full-time musicians versus people who don't do it full-time. And how legitimate is that? And that's not a facetious question, but do you have to be a full-time musician if it means suffering in a whole litany of other areas? Is it necessary? Or could your music potentially be more
No.
inspired? What was that, Luca? Go ahead. Oh, that might be
Nothing. Hand time. Don't think. Tower thingy.
Sorry. I have a thing that says Luca's network bandwidth is low.
Yeah, they're on data at the beach. I'm not surprised. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Online teaching is hilarious.
Anyways, I guess my point there is that at the end of the day, if you want to be a great musician, you're going to be a great musician. Whether or not you're an accountant, a teacher, or an actual full-time musician. I know so many absolutely wicked musicians that do all sorts of other things. And to that, I would add, what do you think all of these great musicians way back in the day, let's say like some of the early jazz musicians, they did other things too. Like who was it?
Yeah.
Was it Charlie Parker that said, if you don't live it, it ain't going to come out your horn, or something like that?
Yeah.
And so that speaks to the notion of, if you do want to be an artist, it's a reflection of the life you live. And if you live an interesting life outside of music, that could very well and probably will reflect into very creative music. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point to be made. That the question is framed in perspective is that of either you are a full-time musician or you're not one, and clearly that's not the case. I mean, like we have so many opportunities in this city, from semi-professional or paraprofessional orchestras, amateur bands, people with recording studios in their house, like Devin.
Yeah.
With the ability to practice their craft without it also having to be the bread that goes on the table.
Exactly.
I'd say that's the majority of people that I know are doing that and not the opposite.
Yeah. You know what? In a perfect world, if you could play all of the shows you wanted to do and do everything musically, fulfill yourself musically, and also provide financially what you needed, that would be great. But my suggestion would be to don't put that kind of pressure on yourself as a young musician to have to make it at all costs, like professional musician or full-time musician or bust, because you could very well be setting yourself up to pass up opportunities. I've always been of the notion that music is a part of life, a really amazing part of life. If it's all of life, then you could very well run into problems. I think music should be a reflection of life, beautiful things, not so beautiful things. It's a reflection of the life that we live, the world around us. If it becomes everything, it can consume you, and you can get really sort of jaded and bitter if things don't work out. those are my random thoughts for the moment.
Yeah, I've experienced that before too. I mean, not to the point where it was like I got to make a big change or whatever, but when we were like, I don't know, like 2004, 2005, and it was like every night gigging jazz standards, like with the same people, for audiences that didn't really listen for decent coin, but for not a lot of feedback that was positive or productive. That, you know, after the
Yeah,
first 7, 8 months, it started to wear on me.
yeah,
But there's folks that do that. I think like if you could list like 4 people that were full-time working musicians in Saskatoon right now. 1, Sheldon.
yeah,
2, Kenny Marco. But that's royalty money.
yeah. Well, I think for a period of time, I was almost as busy as anybody around here.
Oh, no question. You're one of the busiest, man. You're first
And
call.
well, yeah, and that was in and amongst, a day job. Like I remember getting on a plane with my work shirt on, flying to Vancouver, doing a thing overnight, flying back, and taking a taxi cab right to the free stage, playing another show, and then going back to work, like all in a matter of like 24 hours. Um, it's exciting. I also think though that the thought of if you want something done, give it to somebody who's busy. There's something to be said about keeping your engagement levels up. And for me, if I stop becoming engaged, I could very well become a recluse or a hermit or something. So the day job thing is good for me. It keeps me sort of humming on all cylinders, I guess you could say, until the next gig comes along. Especially during a pandemic, it's been pretty rough for musicians who rely on this for income, for inspiration, but I think even more importantly, as part of their identity. So the people who put all their eggs in that basket as a performing musician, like what are they doing? It's really, really tough, really tough.
Yeah, it's not like there's any health benefits, and good luck raising a family like that. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying uh, it's a lot of it has to be attributed to luck.
Yeah, that is such a good point. That is such a good point. Some of the most brilliant musicians I know haven't quote unquote made it, as in they're, not on the cover of the Rolling Stone and not making $1 million a year. And then some people that I frankly wouldn't have pegged have gone on to be very successful. And so what is the common denominator there? Well, it's not skill. It's yeah, it is sometimes being in the right place at the right time. So that being said, if as a young person, Luca wants to go out and, take the world by storm, I say, yeah, do it. But if it doesn't work out, there are so many avenues to be a successful musician aside from being on the cover of the Rolling Stone magazine.
That's a really good point. It's like there's a difference between being a successful musician and being famous, where fame is like a symptom of like a personality disorder, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The constant need of the ego to your video is hilarious, Luca. It's all glitchy. It's just hilarious.
I'm walking.
I was going to say, it looks like you're walking or playing badminton.
Or stroking out because your neck was all stretched out on my screen and your eyes were in the avocados. Anyway, okay. Goodness, me and you, Luca, with the ADHD.
We're walking back to the car right now.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to share the last questions so we can at least touch on that for the recorded video here. And actually, there's like 8 questions, but I'll just do this. Can you tell any interesting stories from being a touring/studio musician? Any interesting brushes with fame to share? So obviously a lot less heavy than the previous question, but everybody's stories are their own, and we have an opportunity to talk with somebody who we won't have the opportunity to talk with again. So if you got something cool to tell us that's never been told before, even if it's old to me, then whatever, then go for it. No holds barred.
Oh man, brushes with fame. Well, actually, Luca, you might not know this, but Brett and I played for the Pope. He's kind of famous. We also played for Prince Charles way back in the day.
Thought about that.
We're just missing a president that we would have the three Ps covered. I had the opportunity to open for the Roots. Like, when was this? Oh, it must have been like 6 years ago. And
At that show, it was fucking tight.
Were you at that?
Yeah, I was in the crowd.
Yeah. Man, that was incredible. Just to be backstage, Questlove, like just to witness the group, that was pretty cool. Another cool jazz festival story. So I was with the group playing the trumpet, and we were opening up for a blues band called Colin James, popular, like Canadian artist. And so we opened up, and there's this whole sort of sometimes awkward crossing over where the opening band, us, we're moving off the stage, trying to pack up all of our stuff, and then the main band, Colin James, they're coming onto the stage to set up all their stuff. And so, we were kind of like doing this sort of interweaving sort of maneuver, and I brushed shoulders with the bass player. And the bass player said, "Hey man, you guys sounded great. The horns, right on. Like, we usually tour with horns and we couldn't bring them this time or whatever." So I was like, "Oh, hey, thanks very much. Yeah, no, really looking forward to your guys' set." He said, "Well, what do you guys think about sitting in with us?" So like, okay. Yeah, well, like, what did you have in mind? So like right before they went on stage to play their set, he basically tosses me his cell phone and says, "Kate, there's a blah blah blah. There's a playlist dialed up. Learn a couple of the tunes from the bottom of the playlist. That'll be our encore, and we'll have you guys up." So I took his phone, went back to my car, which was backstage, put the headphones on, scratched out some 3-piece horn charts just in the car. So it was a 3-piece horn section, and so I gave the charts around, or I think I just put it on the ground, and we all were sort of at the ground playing, and we played 3 tunes with Colin James, just like that. Never played with the group before, like that. That was pretty cool.
Wow, man, that was
fun.
Unreal, like high pressure situation, but also high motivation. Like the creator goes, "Here, opportunity."
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me use my skill set and get it going.
Well, and I think, like, okay, it would have been way easier to say, "Oh man, thanks very much, but no, I got to take off," or whatever. But okay, so I had done a lot of transcribing. That wasn't going to be a problem. And I knew how to chart for 3 horns because I'd done that quite a bit. So it's like what I was talking about like having these other skills to fall back on, not just being a trumpet player or a bass player, learning your theory, learning how to notate, learning how to transcribe. Those are all skills that I had to develop that in that instance, all combined to help me to have this like super cool moment. I got Colin James to sign my chart, and I have it back there somewhere.
Cool, man. Who was on horns there? It was you and Sheldon and Sarah?
And Sarah, yeah.
Right on. Sarah is Dave's wife, so he's also married to a musician.
Yeah.
Luca,
yeah. So
Luca, didn't you go to City Park? Or was that Aiden Bowman?
I went to Aiden Bowman.
Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Oh, Bowman. Was it?
I went to Bowman. I went to Bowman in the elementary school I went to was Buena Vista.
Oh, okay.
Buena Vista. Oh, okay. Buena Vista. Is that where Doug teaches, or was the principal?
Doug
Gilmore?
Oh, I don't know.
No, he was the principal of.
Oh, that was Princess Alexander or something.
Yeah, he was all over the place, but he was
Yeah.
at Forest Grove last. It doesn't matter. He's retired now.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a cool story, man. And you've never even told me that one, so that's
a cool story.
Yeah,
You spend all those years like building up the skill set just in your spare time to actually do transcriptions and be able to function that way, and then the opportunity was there, and you were able to take it. It's interesting um, how we spend our free time with our hobbies. You don't necessarily see the results right away, like it's XP in a video game or something.
yeah.
It comes later, and then and just because you're not seeing results from you building your skill set right away is a real bad reason to stop building it, because you never know where it's going to come in the real world.
Yeah, it's sort of like you know, like practicing, especially for us as like let's say jazz musicians. You learn, you copy these people's licks, right? That's what improvising is. Like you learn how to play what they play, and it doesn't filter. Like if I learned a Charlie Parker lick or a Miles Davis thing, it wouldn't translate into my real flow of improvising until like 3 or 4 months down the road. And then all of a sudden, you're on a gig, you're taking your fourth or 14th chorus of an improvised solo, and all of a sudden you play the thing that you learned. And that's how it like cascades down into what you're able to do, but it doesn't happen automatically. So, oh man, practicing is a whole other hour conversation that we could have. But
Yeah, yeah. It's
But I am at 3%.
3%. Okay, well let's call this here, because or maybe I'll ask Dave here one more question after you got to go. But Lucan, if there's anything that you want to say or not, then go ahead.
I got nothing off the top of my head, but thank you for the advice.
yeah, well, it's really nice to meet you, Luca. Yeah, all the best. What do you play? I didn't even ask.
Oh, Luca's a vocalist. Sorry.
I sing.
Awesome.
I'm a vocalist.
Are you with any groups right now?
No.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and just the importance of finding where you feel like you're like belong, and to just don't like settle until you find that place where you feel like, yeah, these people get me. They're like my people. And if you can find that, then you're successful. That will be really, really meaningful. And you'll know it when you're there. Maybe you're there now. But yeah, some people I think are great musicians, but they never find their people. And they never really have, they never quite achieve that, the level where you're truly satisfied with where you're at. And you're just playing gig to gig. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I think you're probably at 2% now. So it was really nice to meet you and to have a conversation with you, Luca. And all the best.
It was nice to meet you too. I'm sorry I'm walking up a hill.
Somebody's getting some cardio.
All right, there, Void Master.
yeah.
Thanks so much for taking the time to join us out of your awesome day at the beach there. I really appreciate it. I know it probably feels like you're not contributing very much, but the fact that you are actually taking your free social time and spending it listening to us dudes talk is really meaningful to me. So thank you very much. I wish you all the best for the rest of the evening in the Void. Come on, give me one of those. Nothing? All right.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, see you, Luca.
Good night to you.
Good night.
And then there were two.
And there were two.